Today I thought I'd talk about on what makes Michael Myers from the Halloween series so scary. Now, if you can think back to a few videos ago where I discussed why I thought The Witch was the scariest movie of all time, I mentioned a few points in there. One of them being realism, the other point was tension. The original Halloween movie is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of my all-time favorite scary movies, but overall is one of my all-time favorite movies. And the reason being is, that was the first entry in the series, and it wasn't all, impossible for something like that to happen. Growing up, we all told scary stories and talked about urban legends and things like that. At least back when I was young, we did. And one of those things was the old babysitter thing, where you're in the house and somebody's in the house with you and that kind of thing. Well, Michael Myers really was the starting point for a lot of the slasher films that followed him. The Nightmare on Elm Streets, Friday the 13th, and he kind of laid the groundwork because, there was many sequels to follow, but what I enjoyed more about the very first Halloween movie was the story. It wasn't an unnecessary gore fest. Michael Myers wasn't cutting jokes like, Freddy Krueger would. Not that that's a bad thing, but because I do enjoy Freddy Krueger. But Michael Myers, he didn't talk, and the way the film opens up with the first person view of a child and he goes through the house killing people, and then it's revealed little boy. That's utterly terrifying. And you see his parents show up at the end of that first scene, and they're just destroyed, heartbroken. That their kid, their child that they've loved and nurtured and raised throughout these years, just snapped. The movie itself does a great job of talking about Michael Myers and giving the backstory through Dr. Loomis, how he sat with him throughout his teenage years, his formative years. And Dr. Loomis would talk about there's literally nothing there behind those eyes except pure evil. And you can see that by when you look at the mask, how they filmed Michael Myers wearing his mask. You can't see his eyes really unless they give a couple close-ups every now and then. But for the most part, you just see that there's nothing there. When you look at that figure of him just standing there with his jumpsuit on and that mask, there's no eyes, there's nothing there. No expression, it's the same, and he just walks. He's a force of nature. No matter what you do, no matter how fast you run, eventually he's going to catch up to you. And again, it's not like a Friday the 13th scenario where Jason, you outrun him, you trip and fall one time and he's on you. He's not in your dreams like Freddy Krueger is. So to me, this above any of the other slasher films had more realism. Again, I'm speaking more just about the original. The story of him coming back to his town after being locked up in the insane asylum. All of this stuff hits on those points that I talked about of realism. And then you add the tension. Because he's not able to just get to Jamie Lee Curtis's character. He has to get and go through everyone that gets in his way until the ultimate final confrontation. And even then, she's a young teenage girl and she's able to withstand and take some of the punishment he's able to deal to her, but she outwits him, she outsmarts him in some twists and turns, and she's able to get away from him, but he's still coming. Again, with that blank expression, with that just pure evil that Dr. Loomis warned everyone about, that nobody was listening to him about. So these are just some of the points that I tell myself and that I talk to other people about when discussing horror movies, and they go, what are we on now? Halloween 15, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I get it. There's many sequels and there's a reason for that because they all made money. But what I like to tell people is, there's also a really good story behind it. If you watch the original, you have to watch the original. You watch some of the more hokey ones that came out, like the Halloween movie with Busta Rhymes. It was god awful, but Michael Myers is truly one of the most scary figures in all of horror movies, because there's no jump scares, there's no overt where he's screaming and shouting, I'm gonna kill you, and there's no gore, there's no unnecessary gore. If you pay attention to the very first Halloween movie, when there is a killing, when he does kill somebody, there's no blood. You don't see guts falling out and heads being lopped off and limbs being chopped, all that kind of stuff that some of these other movies do now. There's no unnecessary gore just for the sake of having it. He'll stab somebody or slit their throat and he moves on. And that's what I really, really like about these movies, because again, it's all plausible. Okay, I like to sit in these movies and just watch and feel like I'm a part of them. And I'm so happy that the new version, the 2018 Halloween, is coming out, which is, they're calling it a true sequel to the very first one. So they have erased a lot of they pretty much have done away with all the other movies except for the first one, but they're going to have elements from all the movies into this sequel that's coming out in a few weeks. So I want to encourage everybody, if you have not watched the original Halloween, please do so. I promise you, you'll be amazed. It is a fantastic movie. It still holds up to this day, especially if you dive a little bit deeper and learn about how the movie was made with really no budget. It's truly amazing. So again, guys, I want to thank you all for watching and listening along. This is Kurt from Same Differences.